Hey there, welcome to episode number 40 of Killer POV. 40 freaking episodes. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G from FEARnet and Icons of Fright. Joining me as always is Elric Kane from Inside Horror.
That is correct. Until today. And this is the bomb I was going to drop.
Oh, no.
Today I quit Inside Horror.
Quit?
It was a big deal because we were being greenlit with money behind and stuff for Daily Motion. But the reason I did it was I went away on a trip and I had to it takes me a lot of work, unlike this, we just show up and we do it. Inside Horror, I have to write the show, book the guests, and kind of orchestrate the camera stuff. And so basically I realized I'm here to make movies. And so 2014, all in. I'm going to do Killer POV and try to get a movie made. Otherwise, I'm going to die trying. And I'm going to start quitting almost everything I do for free other than these things. And that was the first one. It was hard. That was the hardest thing I've done because I created the show, been doing those shows for 3 years between This Week in Horror and Inside Horror. So 100% done. And I've even given them some ideas of people they could potentially continue the show with. We'll see if they do.
This is a huge bomb.
It was. That's one of the reasons I needed a few. I know. And Becca, I also retired for Becca as well. When I left, she effectively left.
You made her quit.
She was doing the news, but it is a time commitment thing, you can talk about other people's movies
a lot
all the time if you're not doing your own work. And it's kind of that you can open the door, but if you never go through the door, and I think I've been spending the last few years of my life having a door open.
Wow.
So but it's good, so it's my focus now is I love doing this show. So this show, there's nothing could drag me away from this except if AJ Bowen tries to retire me forcefully and take my place on the show.
Which very well could happen.
So it's a bombshell, but it's good. I feel really good about it. And I'm, excited to just focus.
Right on.
Because I have too many distractions since having a child. I have too many things.
You're going to have a second child now.
Yeah, well, that's the rumor. A sequel.
That's the sequel's in the works.
Silent Child, Deadly Child 2.
We'll get to that.
Obviously,
Rebecca's not chiming in for a good reason.
She's dead.
No, that's not nice. Come on.
Well,
she apparently got food poisoning earlier today.
She wanted us to tell you who it was from. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Rebecca. I'm so going to rip you over.
It wasn't a place called Jump Cut. I guarantee you that.
No, it was not Jump. She's like, be sure to tell them.
It was in Beverly Hills.
I got sick while having lunch in Beverly Hills with somebody from Fox, and I'm like, oh my god, let me break out the smallest violin for everybody. Oh my god, right. You're in Beverly Hills having lunch. She's like, but she said no, they were trying to get a discount on advertising. I'm like, oh, so it was a work related thing that has to do with Fangoria or something along those lines. But still, we hope you feel better, and we do miss you. But
and we'll include a couple of her picks in our topic when we tell you.
Yes.
We haven't revealed our topic or our guest for a reason. You have 4 more minutes to wait till you get to that.
Or you'll see the picture before. And
right. Yeah, probably you'll have a couple days of promotion.
So you wanted to... I've just been watching Christmas stuff, so I'm going to wait until we get into the topic. So what did you see this week?
Okay, so I've been going on a binge of mostly smaller indie films because we are preparing... This weekend, we are shooting a crossover episode with the Bloodcast where we're going to reveal our top 10 favorite horror films. And I take these lists, as silly as they might seem to people, very seriously for the most part, because there might be smaller films that could actually benefit from any kind of list of being on in the company of bigger films. So I've been trying to see ones that I'd missed or had been recommended before I kind of locked down. So I kind of have one spot open, I think. Mm-hmm. And I saw a couple. I want to start with one very briefly. I saw something called Scenic Route, which I'd heard some people giving it great props. These people it's by the Goetz brothers, Josh Duhamel and Dan Fogler.
Wow, I never heard of this one.
Kind of like it's a small film, and it's set in the desert. Their car breaks down. 2 friends. At first, it's a breakdown on purpose. One of the friends his friend's not opening up to him anymore, so he purposely makes sure the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere so they can have a better conversation. Unfortunately, it all kind of goes ass end up. And the actors are decent. It's an interesting script. It's just a little routine, a little predictable, and it felt like the third part in 2 films that we've really liked this year, Resolution and The Battery. It felt like the kind of bastard cousin to them, but not as interesting. It lacked some sort of dynamic quality to me. It felt like it also accelerates really quick. From, we're not as close anymore to I'm punching you in the head, and I just didn't necessarily buy it. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting. So it won't be making this list, but it's if you're on Netflix and you like these kind of movies.
Is it on Netflix right now?
It is on streaming. So all 3 of these, in fact, that's how I got to see all 3 of the ones I'm going to talk about.
Cool.
Second one, which is I'd heard really good things about, Antonio Campos, who's a really interesting up and coming Michael Haneke type protege, a lot of people have called him. He made a film a couple years ago called After School, which was really quite hard-hitting. He made a film called Simon Killer that got a lot of press.
I've heard a lot about that.
I think last year going into this year, if ever there was like a target audience, it probably was me. It just felt like the first act of a movie. And the whole film, it was shot well. Brady Corbett, kind of an indie actor who appears in quite a lot of stuff. Marcy May Marlene. It's good. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just very slight. It's much more style substance. It's a young guy who's just been broken up with, goes to Paris from America. It's just him hanging out in Paris, and you're not really sure if something bad happened with the breakup, and he slowly gets into a relationship with a prostitute and kind of falls infatuated, love with her, and then does a couple bad things. But
hate when that happens.
Exactly. It's that same old story. Yeah. But it feels like when it ends, you're like, oh, that would have been the great first 20 minutes of a really darker version of that film. But the style of it's great, and you can tell it's a very assured filmmaker. And the third one, which is one that made, this film was like making every top 10 list in England and the UK. I would call it the kind of, if in a way it feels like a sister to Argento's Deep Red, is Berberian, or Blowout. It's Berberian Sound Studio, which I watched because I had a feeling it would be one of my favorite films of the year. It's really interesting. It's beautifully made. I think it's one of the better crafted films I've seen this year. I just never cared about anything. It's very distancing. Toby Jones, who's a really interesting actor who played Capote, he's like a very kind of timid British sound designer. You don't really know much about him, who gets hired by this Italian company, very much like an Argento company. In fact, there's scenes where they're recording audio that is definitely dialogue almost directly from Suspiria, where the two girls are talking. It's beautifully made, and I loved so many sequences in it. And in fact, some of the best sequences I've seen this year visually on a filmmaking level, but you never really get to know the character, and it is all pretty ambiguous and mysterious, which is what it's intending for these things. So the things I didn't necessarily connect to were very intentional.
Right.
So I would highly recommend people watch it. I think people who are into Italian horror will love that element of it.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you'll walk away going, wow, that was a great horror film. If it makes my list, it'd be like the 10th spot. But it's definitely one of the more interesting films.
So did any of these three make your?
Probably not. Probably not. The other two definitely not. That one might, but I've got, I'm seeing Grabbers, Sightseers, and another one in the next couple of days. I have a feeling my gut says Sightseers, because I love what Ben Wheatley's been doing. I think he's one of
the Kill List guy.
Yeah, Kill List, which was like my number two.
Because you're one of several people I know that are like on a mad dash scramble to watch a bunch of movies. In the middle of the Christmas season, where it's like the busiest time of year.
But I actually genuinely like to see everything.
You are aware that you could say, these are my top 10, but I did not see this or that, which I'm sure are great. You are totally
no, those films cease to exist.
Because I already
once I finish this mad dash, it's over.
My top 10 is done. It was written before I got here. It'll probably be up online by the time
if
this airs.
I can't see something, I just accept it. Like I'm 99% sure We Are What We Are would be on my list from everything I saw about it, but because it probably won't be able to see it in time, that will be one of those. I think there's a couple like that. No, it's not that. It's just like I love including something like I'll see Toad Road this Saturday at Jump Cut Cafe. We'll be screening to 4 people who show up. Toad Road, because I think everyone's going to be on holiday. That doesn't come out till
next year, though, right? So that doesn't count.
It's out on DVD in a couple days. Yeah.
All right.
But that could be a small film that could easily be forgotten. I love it when I can bounce, because I've got a lot of big movies that don't need any more help in my top 10. Yeah. If one of these films connects.
You're trying to find that one weird recommendation.
Yeah, which is why we do this.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we like to talk about movies, we like to go in depth, and we like to find things that other people maybe haven't found yet,
Right.
And illuminate it. And I did see a film this weekend, and I will hold off talking about it. I mentioned a while ago getting an import of a film that I've been looking for like 10 years. That was kind of meant to be like Possession-like, and it's a foreign film that I could never find with subtitles for literally 10 years. It's meant to be like Videodrome. It had all these things I'd heard about over the years. I finally found a German import. It's a Spanish film. I found this film. I finally watched it this weekend, and it is like borderline life altering, one of those films you watch where you go, whoa, especially if you love film. It's all about film.
All right.
It's actually about film. And so I'm going to screen it at Jump Cut. I'm going to do a secret screening, and I'm going to personally invite people I think who will be like really into it. Okay. But I won't bother talking about it right now, especially if Becca's not here, because she's going to probably be very interested in some of the weird stuff about it. But it maybe is less horror-ish than I thought it would be, but it really interesting. Right. And this guy only really made one movie.
And you're not going to tell us right now?
I don't think so. I'd say if anyone's listening, you can write and get angry, and I'll write to you personally and tell you. Sure. I just like to, I can.
All right.
But I've given you enough clues in there.
All right, fine. I mean, I'm not going to figure it out, but whatever.
Once we are going to screen it, once we'll set it up, then we'll talk about it.
Good.
Because I don't want to waste any more time because we have too much fun ahead of us.
Oh, too much fun ahead. All right. Are we ready?
I want you to...
I've been wanting to do this.
Do you want to introduce or do you want to tell the story of how this happened? I want to hear this.
That's the intro. That's the good intro. So, okay. So the backstory is we actually had a guest booked to come in this week who got ill at the last minute and is still going to come in hopefully next week. So that show will happen before the end of the year.
He'll come because he's relentless.
Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
That's your clue.
Guest that we really wanted to have on had to postpone. And, it happened like a day or two ago. So usually we scramble at the last minute when a guest cancels thinking, okay, what are we going to do? Or are we just going to show up ourselves? Are we just going to do a topic? Is there anybody we could find? Whatever. And in the middle of our scrambling, literally in the middle of me texting back and forth between Elric and Rebecca, my good friend Joe Bashara sends me a text.
Who's also been on the show.
He was on in October for our soundtracks episode. A great composer, great guy, great friend. And occasionally he'll just randomly text me odd things. And this was one of them. The backstory is, as you know, I did a fan commentary with actor A.J. Bowen for Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. It's one of our favorite holiday horror movies, and we did it just for the hell of it, just because we love the movie.
And I'd written to you many times lately saying, is there any way before Christmas we can get anyone from Silent Night?
It's like, who knows anybody from these movies? I don't.
They're all bound to be dead.
So
who could survive that?
This is way longer than it should be, this story. But anyway, so our guest canceled. I did this commentary, and then randomly out of nowhere, Joe texted me saying, hey man, I sent your fan commentary for Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 to my friend Lee because, he like directed it and stuff. He thought it was fun. And I was like, wait, what? You know the director of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2? And he's like, oh yeah, we did trailers together and stuff. And I'm like, is he local? And he's like, yeah, he lives in the Valley by you. And I was like, oh my God, if only we can get Lee Harry, the director of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, on to Killer POV.
And unfortunately, that was the end story because he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But we do have a really good grip on the show tonight.
We've got an extra for Lee Harry. No, I'd like to welcome the director of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, Lee Harry.
Hello. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming. This is so crazy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I love when stuff happens like this in the span of 2 days.
It's great.
It's so bizarre. And
I couldn't even believe it when you texted me that. In all honesty, I thought you were just messing with me. Because I was like, what?
He's here.
Yeah, that's too weird. And he sounds like Bryan Cranston. If you're at home and you're worried about that, it's not Bryan Cranston. I assure you.
Oh, it might be. You never know. Yeah. So obviously, I mean, this is one of those movies that people tend to celebrate every time December rolls around.
Yes.
And I definitely want to talk about it, but let's talk about you a little bit because you have you directed this, but obviously you're primarily an editor and you've done a tremendous amount of trailers.
A lot of trailers.
Joe Bashara is a composer, but when I first met Joe, before he was really delving into the world of feature-length films composing, he did a ton of trailers that you've seen. Like he did the music for the Freddy vs. Jason trailer, just tons of stuff. You guys met on the trailer for Strange Days.
Strange Days.
Wow, how crazy is that?
Catherine Bigelow's?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun film.
Yeah.
We did, I don't know if you've seen, it was the teaser. It's the one that's a close-up of Rafe
Like
Fiennes.
the poster image, I think.
Yeah, very much so. And I had used, in that piece, I used Reptile, Nine Inch Nails song.
Oh.
And the studio, you couldn't buy any music from Trent Reznor at the time. So a friend of mine, the producer of the trailer, knew Joe and brought Joe in. He took a look at it and he said, yeah, I see what you're going for. And he came back 2 days later with this amazing, badass piece of music that, laid right in. It was perfect. It wasn't a knockoff. It was the same feeling as that piece. And Catherine liked it, and went to finish.
We got to go to YouTube immediately.
Yeah, and check that
out. but yeah, so well, let's talk a little bit about the whole trailer thing, because I have a friend at Lionsgate, Garrow, who's on my trivia team that does trailer stuff, and it's just I'm fascinated by this because this is the most important. This is the most important thing of the film is selling, kind of what the movie's about. I know.
Yeah, we should talk about that because I didn't know that last night even, and I revisited this last night after having just seen the first one again in theaters. We all watched it a few days ago when it was re-released, and I hadn't really thought about, besides the funny segments you think about, like Garbage Day, I hadn't really thought about it. So the first 30 minutes, when you came in, I said the first 30 minutes uses so much of the previous film to kind of start the story that I was like, I didn't even need to watch those parts because I'm like, I just saw this yesterday. I know this movie. So I was kind of surprised to learn that was that was the assignment. So maybe I want to hear about what was the assignment. How did you get to even this gig?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, tell us if this rumor is true or not. And you might have even talked about it on the commentary, but it's been a while. So the first movie came out, but was yanked pretty quickly out of theaters.
About a week, actually.
The
PTA, everybody was up in arms about it.
Right. And so, but 2 was a few years later. Or was it close to when the first one came out? I can't remember.
Well, we did it in, I'm thinking, was it 86 that we did ours, or came out in 87? I think we shot it in December of 86.
What had part 1 hit VHS home market and been a big success?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. No. Yeah. So your assignment. So you're brought in by who exactly, and what was the assignment?
Well, I think the rights were bought away from TriStar, and a local distributor who did a lot of women in prison movies actually bought the rights to do it, and brought it to a friend of his who ran this post-production house where I was an editor, and came in and said, "Can you guys recut this and make it look like another movie, and we'll release it?" And we watched it a couple times, said, "No, I don't think so, but if you give us some money and let us write some scenes around it, I think we can use the existing movie's flashback material, and then we'll segue into a goodly amount of our own stuff."
Has that ever happened? And can you think of another example?
I can't. I don't know.
So they wanted you to reshape it to just appear like that same film. So it would have appeared not to have been Silent Night, Deadly Night, but another Christmas slasher.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
And at this point,
rather than re-release it.
Well, I guess they couldn't.
You change the name?
Maybe. I don't know. That is odd.
But it is. It's really interesting.
So, I mean, was it much of a fight to get to do original material for it?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I mean, once we pointed out to them that, you can move these scenes around any way you want, but it's still going to be the same movie, we said, how about another story? How about taking it a little bit further with this character who's left at the end? And they didn't give us much money.
That was the thing. Knowing it was a low budget actually surprised me because I was thinking in my head, I knew Silent Night had been pulled from theaters, but I assumed it had been a monster on home video.
Yeah.
So I was assuming somebody made a fortune off this and then decided to do a sequel and thinking you would have been given a decent amount of money.
No.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah. That's the way I always heard it too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it sounds like this was probably came together really quickly. Did you have a lot of time to think about what this new footage was going to be, or were you guys kind of gunning it from what you? Because the other thing, right before we came on here, Lee was telling me that he's not that big a horror fan, and in particular, I agree in this. I'm not that big a fan of the first movie, and that's only because it's very mean spirited.
Yeah, no, people at the theater I went to really got a kick out of it, and people sitting next to me, friends of ours, really loved it, and they hadn't seen. A couple of them hadn't seen it before. Buzz hadn't seen it. He was like, "This is a great movie." I had seen it before. The only scene to be honest, I really would ever really need to watch again is Grandpa. Grandpa's gold and could be in any movie, and I would enjoy that scene. But otherwise, it is a really nasty piece of work. There's certainly some interesting moments, but
that's what I always liked about 2 is it kind of cut the pacing in half and kind of took out a little bit of that mean streak. So that when you do revisit that footage, it's not as harsh as I remember it being.
Well, and if it didn't exist, like let's say like if their assignment was to like re-release this and then the original never got seen, then this would be a whole different thing. Because now everyone criticizes. Obviously, the first thing people say to you must be, "Oh, but it's a shame it has so much of this recycled footage." Well, if number 1 didn't exist, suddenly that would make that a really rich sequence of the film, which is interesting. What a weird assignment.
So what was like the first thought watching the first movie and thinking like, all right, how are we gonna cut this down?
I was pacing around the room, hiding my eyes because I'm very squeamish. Until I got into trailers and you end up watching all these movies and you're not squeamish anymore.
Which is funny because you have a cameo in the film for people watching when you're in a movie theater scene and you're covering your eyes even because you're embarrassed by your friend, but you're also not looking at the screen, which is funny.
Yeah. So now we watched it, and and Joe Earl, the other writer, was he would talk me through it. Oh, his head just came off. Okay. Oh, they just cut her throat. And then maybe we'd rewind it, and I'd take a look at it. Okay, all right. And we knew those were the moments that we had to use the kills from the first movie. I mean, that was part of the deal going in. Mm-hmm. But it only took us, it took us a day to write the outline of it.
That's great.
And then I think it was another week to put a script together. But I was just reading the outline last night, and it's like 12 pages, and most of the dialogue is in there.
Huh. Really? Wow.
And we just kind of powered through it and had fun. And, we weren't doing it with outrageousness in mind per se. We at the time, Joe and I were really into Stephen King and the Randall Flagg kind of laughing, jocular villain.
Yeah.
He'd give a little grin before he ripped somebody's head off.
Right.
And Warner Brothers cartoons.
Right.
Those are the two.
Well, that part definitely comes.
Yes.
He definitely has that Tex Avery almost.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of off-screen crashes in this movie, and people going whoa off-screen
and one crash that's an inch away from the actor.
Oh my God!
There's one stunt that's unbelievable.
It scares me every time I watch it. It's so close. But so, did you guys have any criteria from the people that were producing this in terms of like, oh, the first one ended with Ricky, so make Ricky the killer, or anything like that? You had free reign.
It was purely a monetary exercise for them. They had bought the rights to release this again, and they were going to, by God, release it again. So
wow. Well, then we have to talk about the casting for this movie, because if it came together quickly, the thing that everyone's obsessed with is Ricky.
Yeah, and before even asking about that, like, when did you learn that this was even something people think about, this movie? Like Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, was it the phenomenon of YouTube? Or what, did you see a T-shirt like the one Rob's wearing right now? Like the Garbage Day thing, like when did you realize that anyone even gave a shit,
Well, it had to be back when the movie came out, was re-released on DVD with the first one. Mm-hmm. And about that time, the YouTube videos were out there, and the Garbage Day repeating, and you were seeing the video game take off of the shooting spree. And I just thought it was funny. I'd call Joe up and say, have you seen this? Can you believe this? And because we'd forgotten about the movie, quite honestly.
Yeah. Right.
It just, no one had talked about it for years.
Right.
Well, what was the release like when it initially came out? Being that, like, did it play? This one didn't get pulled out of theaters the way the first one did.
No, but nobody went to see it. I mean, it played at the Egyptian. I went to see it at the Egyptian the first night. And I think another week, 10 days at the most, it was, moved on.
Is there a 35 mil print out there?
Oh, yeah. They showed it at the New Bev last year.
They did?
Yeah.
I think we should try to get it to the Egyptian. Bring it home. And then get Eric out here. Let's go backwards there. Let's go back to the casting thing, because this is,
Yeah. I mean, finding Eric. I mean, here's the thing, and I was nervous when Joe told me that you listened to our fan commentary. It's like, oh shit, I hope we weren't negative or anything. But there is a genuine love that AJ and I have for this movie, and we've explained before. AJ is an actor, and he's like, fuck everyone that's making fun of Eric. He's like, that dude is committed. Like, that dude believes he's Ricky. I don't care if you think it's good or bad or over the top. Like, as an actor, I could see that guy believes it.
And it's really modulated. There are moments that are so big where you're like, I don't know if he's any good. And then there's a couple moments, and I said to you last night, I'm watching it, and I'm going, oh yeah, I remember AJ mentioning a part during what I'm now calling the laughing spree. Instead of a shooting spree, the laughing spree. But there's a moment where the little girl runs into him. And he's been done his Garbage Day, all this stuff, and the girl bikes off, and he turns and watches her leave. And there's something in his look that has so many things going on with it, almost like he's making Christmas better for her, that he misses, hopes she has a great life, that he would never harm her, but there's also an air of menace to it. It has like 5 things going on in this one look, and you go, oh, well, that was a real interesting moment,
She apologized. She was polite.
Yeah, she was polite.
Nice.
Yeah, she was not naughty.
And it was funny when that scene happened the first time I watched it with AJ. He was just like, he's like, oh, that's cool. I'm just having a freak out, but you're all right. You can go.
Yeah.
He's like, no, Ricky's cool. He's just having a freak out right now.
Yeah. It's just a bad moment. But it was interesting, and it did make me think that there's more going on. I also thought the very opening scene makes me think there's something really, I don't know, like there's a real actor at work, like where you're just showing the frontal shot of his face as they're setting up the tape recorder. Feels very focused. He has some sort of presence for sure. You know, it's not until he goes really huge where you're like, I don't know where I am right now. You know, which is interesting. You know.
So why him? What was it about this guy?
Do you remember the audition? Did he audition?
Absolutely. Remember, it was at the post-production house in Burbank, and it was a regular casting session. We had people coming in all day, and we had a couple of well-known enough low-budget actors come in and really more serious take on the character. And then he came in with the bodybuilder physique, and the producer, Larry Applebaum, I like this kid.
Is that how all great films get made?
That's it, that's him.
Right.
That's Ricky. And Joe and I said, well, okay, he's pulling the strings, and the aprons are the purse strings. So we said, okay. And we talked to him, we pulled him aside and said, can you do this? Are you willing to commit to this? And how would your character be? And, we talked about it. But as far as, was that the vision of Ricky? Ricky was just on the page. I can't say we had a vision of Ricky.
Well, it was C. Thomas Howell, of course.
But yes.
At that time, it was probably everyone. Did you screen the film for him in advance?
No.
Okay, so none of the actors had seen the backstory of what happened to his brother, for instance?
No, maybe some of them had in the theater, but we didn't have a cast screening before we shot it or anything.
Because that scene melted my brain last night. There's a scene where they're at a movie theater and
watching the first
and he's
movie.
already been talking about his life for most of the film, and then they're watching a movie and you don't know what movie it is, and then it shows it's like what happened to his family, and my brain actually stopped for a second. Like my brain just went, that is more meta, I think, than anything. It really was a very strange moment.
Where was that shot? The theater scene?
That was shot at it was an optical place in town. It wasn't Pacific Title. It was a small optical place on Santa Monica Boulevard. The guy who owned it was friends with the producer. I mean, we called in every favor on this thing. And it was a screening room, as you guys said in the commentary. That just looks like a tiny little place. It was. It had 12 seats in it, I think. And we just populated it with friends.
Yeah.
And shot the thing.
Wow. To me, the best casting in this movie, especially to a 12-year-old Rob G, is his girlfriend, played by Elizabeth Caton, who at that time had done, she was in one of the Friday the 13th movies, Part 7. I think she did something called like Necromancer. She was doing a lot of low-budget horror stuff. So anyone, when you're at that impressionable age, you recognize these people.
Well, they both showed their bodies, and they're both in good shape in that scene where they're standing he's very straight in that scene. His body's very straight, holding her tight. Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of the chaste love scene.
It was
there.
like...
and there were 18 people in that room when we shot.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So what was your favorite part of the whole thing it looked like it was a blast. It must have been a blast to put it together. But was there pressure, or did you have fun doing it? Like, what stood out for you during the actual production?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. The editorial for me is what I enjoy. I like sitting in the room and putting pieces together. And Joe and I would just laugh and laugh. We just got such a kick out of this thing. And not because we thought it was so over the top. We just thought, this is awesome. This is a movie I would like to see.
Yeah.
And that's the editorial. The production of it itself was hell. It was, now granted, we had a steady cam, we had a Fisher dolly with track, we had lights, we had a
couple
crane
of
at one point.
Scenes.
Christopher
with
Biggs.
The car. Where you melt the face is a great scene.
Yeah, we had nice makeup. So we got everything we asked for. What we didn't get was time. I was saying to Rob before that we really had about 2 takes of everything. Wow. So there
How many days was the shoot?
I think it was between 10 and 15 days, so probably 12 or 13 days. And we were out in Sierra Madre, and some of the stuff we shot in Hollywood at friends' places. And I think some of the red cloth exploding with the squibs we shot at my house.
Right.
We just had the crew go over there and set up a camera, and bam, 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 and that was that. But it was very pressure, a lot of pressure. I had the producer on my back the whole time. Let's go. let's go. And if you'll notice, there are a lot of complicated dolly moves in this thing, going up,
especially your
down,
long walking sequence. I mean, you have a really long walking sequence.
Oh yeah,
where he's going from place to place.
Well, that's the steady cam.
Yeah,
I mean, that was great. We have a steady cam on this.
Right.
That's great. But the crew was revolting half the time, and we were eating McDonald's for catering, and it was a low budget movie.
Naughty.
Naughty.
Did you? Yeah. I'm curious. When you're out there, had you directed before, or like because the editor pressure on an editor is always like quite a different thing than production time pressure.
I did a movie in college.
Okay.
Student movie.
Right. So it wasn't the first time you'd experienced.
It wasn't the first time, but it was the first time with a crew of that size, and it was a good sized crew. I don't know if you ever saw the unletterboxed version of it, but during the. It was on the VHS before they did the re-release, and on the killing spree, we do a pan over to him.
You talk about that in that when
and you can see the entire crew. They're standing right there.
Oh, interesting.
And people talked about that, of course, when they first reviewed the VHS when that came out.
Right.
Did Siskel and Ebert review the film? Because I know they loathed. I've seen their interviews about the first one. They just hated the first one so hard. They were brutal on the first film. So I was curious. They almost were kind of helping lead that charge at that time, which is interesting.
I reread last night the Hollywood Reporter review of it, and the first paragraph said, "You better not pout, you better not cry, and you better not go see Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2."
How wrong they were.
They were wrong.
How wrong they. So let's talk about Eric in terms of like when you're directing him. What was your vision of the character? Was it for him to do this thing that's like larger than life, or was that something like, was that his natural state? Because he had done soap operas before.
He had some experience, but again, it was just so fast that it was set up the camera, and usually we'd have a little bit of rehearsal, but there really wasn't any rehearsal. Set up the camera with some kind of complicated move, and the last thing I do was talk to Eric about, by the way, Lee, what the hell am I supposed to do?
Right.
Well, you just look in the camera and say, fuck you, Doc.
Yeah.
And the quiet stuff, yes, but he's got that cadence in his voice, and I think that's, people picked up on that, and when you guys were doing the commentary, you're kind of aping him as you go, ooh.
It's kind of hard not to. I mean, it's just,
My favorite's Eat Shit Dog. That was just shit dog. Yeah, just like, whoa.
Yeah, there's some pretty intense, I don't know. I equate it to like, we're not making fun of it. We're sincerely... it's like when a character, like an Austin Powers type, or some you're watching somebody that does something so unique that you've never seen before that you immediately try to imitate it.
Also, no one would waste 2 hours of their life just to mock something they didn't like. I mean, I think that's the great thing about being a fan of anything. If you're going to talk about it for 2 hours and think about it as much as we all think about movies, you're a fan. That's the definition of a fan.
Tell me he was shocked how much we thought about this movie before.
Well, AJ, from the one time AJ was here once talking about how he was going to explain one day his philosophy about why it's a great performance. And I think that's really interesting. I mean, I can't necessarily see the word great to me. I would be struggling with that performance, but I certainly find it like highly amusing.
Right.
Well, he was a lot of fun. I mean, he was engaged in the process. He wanted to do a good job. He did what we asked of him, and it was really 2 takes. It was really one take, which was up here, and then the next take, give me more, and that was up there. And when you start to cut the thing together, you have to choose. And I think we're going to go for the
all the way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it worked. It was the right choice. That's a weird thing. It might, you know what I mean? Like we're now giving it a stamp of approval. So
well, there's also a sense of, was there ever a sense of? I mean, now obviously you can come in here and talk about it, and that we appreciate the movie. But was there ever a sense of embarrassment maybe sometimes after it came out where you didn't want to bring it up or talk about doing this movie? Because that's kind of the thing about everyone's theory about why Eric isn't out there is because he's embarrassed by the movie or whatever, which neither of you have anything to be embarrassed about.
Well, when it came out, as I said, I went the first night and I took some good friends with us. Mm-hmm. And here comes the movie, and it played, and my friends were so, wow, that's, where are we going for dinner?
That's tough, yeah.
So that's when I began to see that I wasn't objective about it. And, you work on a movie for months at a time, and you can't be objective about it, and you have to think it's the greatest thing or else you can't get up in the morning and come in and work on it.
How did the producer feel even before you showed it to an audience? Had he seen an early preview?
We showed him. We were cutting it out of the company he owned, so he would come in every now and then and take a look. But his whole thing, at one point he said, look, this ain't art. Will you just finish it? Because we took a long time to cut it. Mm-hmm. So, again, a monetary
They didn't care. They wanted the title.
Yeah.
And they were going to put it out no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
What about on VHS? Did it come out before the original? Like, who got to the home video market first?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because I don't remember. I don't remember the order that I found them. But I know I definitely went backwards, maybe even from like the third one.
Right.
You know? You didn't bother watching the ones that came after.
No.
Okay.
No,
because they try their best to pick up from where.
Well, no, I mean, look, this is weird because I know the director of Part 3 and the actor who plays Ricky pretty well, Bill Moseley in Part 3, and it's really weird because when I watched yours last night, I had seen 3 very recently, and I'm getting to the end of your film, and I'm thinking, okay, so I wonder when they're going to blow Ricky's head off. Because in Part 3, he has a head exposed and his brain is in a weird bubble, and he's like in a science lab. So I'm assuming that would have been explained at the end of 2, and then I get to the end and he's just been shot, and I'm like, what the? What is number 3 smoking? Like, because it's really weird. I mean, it's and knowing Monty Hellman, who's like a director who's one of the best directors of all time, just not in that genre. And he only did this because he had a fever and he took the gig. He thought he was dying of fever, and somebody came and convinced him to take the project.
Which is a great story.
It is in itself, but he's a very logical. He'll always try to find the logic and the realism of anything, which is hilarious when you watch this film because Bill Moseley's walking around with half a head and a brain out of its skull. But I just don't know.
Looks nothing like any of the previous Rickies.
Especially not Ricky. Yeah, especially not your Ricky. But
so you've never seen that image before of Moseley with like he's got a giant it's almost like a fishbowl and his brain is exposed. And the cop that's in 3, he's only in a few scenes, but it's Robert Culp.
Yeah, Robert Culp. Well, you know why he's there. He's there because he's a friend of Monty. That's the thing. Monty can pull a couple of the legit actors from his work. But
what I love is I think Robert Culp actually says at one point, like, Ricky, I was there when we blew his head apart or something like that. So he's supposedly one of the cops that shows him.
And it really never happened. I was thinking maybe, last night, I was like, maybe they were experimenting on the brain of a killer or something like that.
Yeah, I love that you're trying to rationalize the
How much would it cost me to pay you to sit with us and do a commentary for Part 3 on your first viewing just to see what happened after your world? Your world ends and this world starts. You'd be like, what the hell? It's a very strange film. I mean, all 3 of them have their own oddities, But yeah, obviously the logic wasn't there, the through line. And then it's gone completely after 3, right? 4 and 5 or something.
4 and 5 are just name only.
Yeah,
they're just like Christmas themed horror movies that fit into that. That's just where it becomes a title. So after it came out, a little bit embarrassed by it. But now, did you want to direct, or were you fairly?
Oh yes, I came out here specifically to try to direct films.
Okay,
and I did one after Silent Night, actually. It was Street Soldiers. It was a Taekwondo gang movie. And it has some performances in it, too. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a trademark.
We'll have to seek that out now.
But I actually got that job based on Silent Night, too. So, something had to have worked, in the producer's mind who hired me for that. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I've had it on my resume. And when I got into trailers, I would show it to some of my clients. Hey, take a look at this. I did this years ago. Mm-hmm. But mostly it's the new kids who've come in to be editors, trailer editors, who know this movie. Yeah. And hey, I'm Lee Harry. How are you? Lee Harry, I know a guy named Lee Harry who did this movie. And yeah, that's me. Yeah. Really? Really? It's a surprise. Total surprise.
It doesn't surprise me that editors because it's a sharply edited movie. That's the thing. It's put together in a very well way. And again, it's like, when you're working and massaging footage that exists, I think it's kind of impressive the way you kind of worked in Ricky's story into this whole session where he's talking to a psychologist and kind of telling the whole story.
I think if people knew that, it would be up front before they put it on. It would be a very different first reaction. I think everyone's criticism is totally valid. Mm-hmm. They didn't know that because who wants to watch part of another movie you've already seen? Yeah. But if number 1 wasn't available, that would have really been a different story altogether. It's really interesting.
No, I mean, since then and since it gathering a cult following, have you eased up a little bit on horror movies in general, or are you still a little squeamish about that stuff?
Well, my squeamishness kind of went out the window when I started doing trailers. I did Demons. Remember Dario Argento? Like, oh my God.
Lamberto Bava.
Yeah.
I think that's a great film. That's actually one of those modern, because it's also a little self-reflexive, set in a movie theater.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really powerful,
some crazy
strong,
stuff in it.
Freaky movie. Yeah.
Although I do remember seeing I went to a midnight screening of Reanimator and that was second, so it didn't start till like 3 a.m.
Right, well, that's too much.
By the time they were in the theater, I was delirious. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what was movie, what was real.
Yeah.
So
it was all real.
Well, with trailers, you end up watching a movie over and over and over again. So I was able to get through these parts by just, hiding my eyes the first time, zipping through it the second time, going normal speed the third time, slow, and then figuring out, Lee, it's only a movie. Yeah. You want to make these things. Yeah. And, it's just squibs and blood and, fake blood and whatever. Starship Troopers was another one that cured me of being scared of violence.
That's a fun one. I mean, pretty much anything Verhoeven.
Yeah.
Violence is fun.
Yeah.
Is that, it's funny because I don't know this, but is that how it works when it comes to cutting trailers? Do you watch the entire movie? Mm-hmm. Do you have, like a set schedule, like, all right, I'll watch it 2 or 3 times? And do you get notes or do you make notes like, all right, these are the fun beats that I think will represent the movie?
It's movies given over to a team. It's a producer, an editor, and a copywriter. Mm-hmm. And we would sit there and watch the movie once and then go off. And as an editor, I would break it down, which means I would watch it, each scene. I would, on the Avid, you kind of separate it. Okay, scene 1 is this, scene 2 is this, etc. Then you break down each scene by shot and dialogue. And while you're doing that, the copywriter is in his office, going, in a world, let me say, one man can. And then we all come together and we talk about, the script could go like this, we could start like this, the music could be like that. Then we pitch it to the studio. And the studio will say, well, we don't really want to play up that aspect, or, hey, you guys hit it on the head, let's see what you can do. And then we have about 2 weeks to do it.
When did you start? Because now that I learned this about you, because I didn't know coming in that you had done this history of trailer, you become also a very interesting guest in a very different way to me. Because trailers, the art of the movie trailer has changed so dramatically. And I'm curious, when did you start? What do you remember when you started cutting trailers?
90.
Okay.
90. Yeah.
So it's still a good period. See, for me as a kid, when you'd watch a VHS, I was most excited about the start and end of the movie because I got to see those trailers. And that got me so excited about movies. I am now at a point where I almost go out of my way to not watch anything because the art of the trailer changed so dramatically with the amount of information they gave us that I will see, and I have no idea, how where that shift changed. But I'd love to know. But if I see something, and I think Relativity Media did, there was a Harrison Ford versus Gary Oldman movie this year called Paranoia or something. I mean, I'm telling you, like, every beat, every twist is in that trailer, and you're watching it for 2.5 minutes going, there is zero way you'll ever get me to watch this movie now, because I feel like you have just given like every reveal, every turn, every lumber, and you're kind of losing it. But whereas there used to be trailers like Congo, where it was a freaking camera dollying across the trees out of focus, like some rhythmic drum or something, and then just like some weird atmospheric music, and boom, Congo. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to Congo. And I'm like, I have no idea what Congo's about, but I'm going to see Congo. And I watched Congo. Unfortunately, it's not a good movie, but the trailer made me want to see. You know what I mean? Like, when did things like that start changing? And is that from the top down, just change in marketing strategies? Or
well, the heads of marketing for the studios used to be the person that you had to please, and if they liked it, it usually got finished. You'd show it to the head of the studio, whatever. But the head of marketing, their job was to decide what goes out there. And then as studios got bought up by big corporations and conglomerates and things, the chain of command got larger and larger, and movies started costing more and more money, and they started selling them, marketing them more like a product, a brand, which means market research and focus groups. And you show what you're talking about
more
is a teaser.
In the kitchen is what you're saying. Yeah.
You're talking about a teaser, a special shoot that was shot just to be released as a piece of marketing.
One, but even
the Strange Days one was that. Mm-hmm. But those don't test. Yeah. If you take that and put it in front of a focus group, most people will say, what the hell's going on? What's the movie about? Well, this is just a teaser. It's a announcement piece to let you know it's coming.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to go unless I know what it's about. And that's when let's put a few more jokes in there. And you put all the A jokes in there. And the studio watches this thing and researches focus groups it over and over, and they get tired of the jokes. Oh, let's put some different jokes in and some different jokes. So by the time something's released, it's a good chance, the trailer's released, it's a good chance the jokes are going to be the C and D jokes. See, to me, a comedy is the hardest trailer to cut because you'll end up with the C and D jokes, but you can watch an explosion over and over again. You have better luck finishing an action movie trailer than you do a comedy trailer. Right. And sense of humors aren't the same, and it has changed a lot.
I don't know if you're familiar, but there was a film last year called Quarantine, and it has the last shot of the movie and the last shot of the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, I would burn a studio down for that. I mean, that's just crazy. That's like crazy.
I mean, it was the freaking poster of the movie.
It's the last twist of your movie before credits come up and you're showing it in your trailer. I'm not saying you, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm saying what is the logic behind giving it all away like that? But that tests well, obviously, because that's the best shot you have in your movie.
Well, the famous story about that is Castaway. The Castaway trailer, the last shot in the trailer is him standing at the crossroads back
which
on
is
dry land.
Yeah.
Like, why would you show that? Well, because focus group said, I'm not going to go unless Tom Hanks lives.
Right.
You can't kill Tom Hanks.
Huh. What's the worst experience you've had from a trailer you wanted to come out a certain way to where it was kind of forced out into the world? Or are there a couple that come to mind even where you wanted to go a different direction and they just don't emerge that way? The art of the movie trailer.
That's a hard question and a sensitive question.
So quarantine was you. No. You were quarantined, huh? I guess I should have researched that before There's no IMDb for trailers, is there?
No.
There's no way to know all those credits you would have for trailers.
Somebody turned me on to a Twitter page that lists who does all the trailers that are out there now, which is interesting. I'll give you the link later,
or something you've loved. I mean, it doesn't have to be negative. I'm just curious if there's, where you explore and you find something, maybe like Strange Days, where you see something in it that maybe not everyone, because there is still obviously an art to anything when you're editing or discovery,
My favorite trailer, it was No Country for Old Men.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And my second trailer after Demons was Barton Fink. And I think that's one of my favorite ones too, because it's totally, it's a non-linear trailer. Yeah. And I love the Coens.
And it's not a movie you can ruin either because you have to kind of sit. You wouldn't matter if you saw the last shot. You still would have to experience their filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And they are unique like that for sure. Yeah. I find the trailer thing completely fascinating. I'm curious. Did you remember when you first started? Did it feel a lot different?
Oh, yes.
Okay, more like Wild West. You're on your own, do your thing.
Well, it was a small company, and we would do a cut and send it to the client, and he'd say, "Yeah, I like it. Okay, thanks." Man. And he didn't hire 3 other vendors to try it again. It just, if they liked it, they put it out there.
Do you remember your first?
First trailer was Demons. And the second was Barton Fink. There was a lot of time in between there. And then Dr. Giggles was right after that.
Yes. You made Larry Drake look good.
Yeah. And there was another one hard to get through for me because that's a pretty violent movie.
Yeah.
Eric Freeman should have been Dr. Giggles. Imagine Eric Freeman as Dr. Giggles.
Manny Coda directed that one.
Yep.
We should go back about Eric because one of the big side stories, we've been doing this for 40 episodes, and there's been a couple episodes where if he's come up, we've looked at some of these websites that had been like searching for Eric Freeman, and that actually started from the commentary in here, right?
Well, the greatest thing was the night of Silent Night, Deadly Night on the big screen a few weeks ago. Rebecca guilted him into dressing up like Santa Claus again, which he ended up not doing. He passed it off to a girl.
I did, but I was still there.
But he still went up to do the intro, and they were doing Q&A to give out prizes.
You had to answer really simple questions like who does this in this film,
right? And your last one was like,
my question was,
you said, I will. All right, he's like, if anyone can answer this question,
I will pay for your mortgage. And then I just said, where's Eric Freeman? And there's like there's like 4 people like scoffed and then dead silence because no one knew who the hell Eric Freeman was.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a serious thing at that moment because we'd been talking about it a lot, and in this modern age, it's actually really rare for even just like bureaucrats or like lawyers to be off the grid, and his name brings up almost nothing online, Google,
Right.
except for people who can't find him.
Yeah.
Who are looking for him only because of a comment you made in a commentary. I mean, they might have looked for him anyway, but it seems that this comment, when you guys were recording the commentary, when you said, yeah, and we looked for him for this, but we don't know where he was, we couldn't find him, that alone seems to have driven everyone's kind of interest in thinking maybe he...
I love that one line in your commentary became part of like the Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 mythology.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, where is he? Nobody could find him.
Well, I had Joe's phone number. I had Jim Newman, Dr. Bloom's phone number. I had not talked to Eric for years, and they wanted to record this commentary the next day, and there was just no time. And I can't even remember if there was Google back then to look people up as easily as you can.
But it looks like even if you had, you wouldn't have found him from what we at that point. It doesn't seem. So we've been following. There was a couple sites I looked at a few weeks ago. One of them ended up being the one that
article I sent.
That
you.
article. One ended up being that I saw that a few weeks ago where he intimated that he might have had a number. But there was a whole Facebook page dedicated to searching for Eric Freeman, and it started. It looked like when some like maybe possible friends of his started posting photos, and they thought it was really funny. But no one knows if it's real or not. But do you want to say what we posted it? But for people listening to this, what you found couple days ago.
Yeah, that article. Let me see if I could.
There's a couple quotes in it. It was really recent.
Yeah, there's some quotes, and we actually talked about it very briefly before we started.
It's playing barbecue, but a guy had been searching for Eric. I think he had a lead, and he had emailed it, and then finally did get a couple responses. The hard part is to authenticate anything if somebody's not that interested in bothering. It's going to be tough.
From the horror movie Barbecue.
Yeah.
I got the article right here.
But I think it might be worth just even one of the passages of what Eric's actually saying, because it's not very ominous. It's pretty, it makes sense. It's. I think people don't live in LA, and I'm definitely one of them. Who, if you're a cinephile and you see millions of movies, you have kind of a warped idea of what life and filmmaking is anyway. And then if you move to LA, you think filmmaking is life. You can't imagine why anyone would ever do anything else, or why you would want to think. You move into LA, and suddenly after a couple of years, you start to realize, man, it is hard to survive, to just make a living. And it's probably harder, maybe at one of its hardest points ever right now, because the industry is just so different and so much freelancing. And
well, it's tough as an actor, I'm sure, to put yourself out there all the time. Yeah. And I think he had a pilot that didn't go through and a couple of roles that didn't happen, and you just get discouraged.
And and to be honest, I would say from an inside, from living here, I think the smart ones, if they see the writing on the wall, the smart ones are the ones who leave and reinvent themselves and go have a family and live in Virginia or whatever. Because the people you meet here who didn't do that, but also haven't had a career, and then they're 60 and just look like this life has just taken such a toll by trying to pursue something that isn't going to happen, which is a hard thing to tell. You don't want to ever shit on someone's dreams, but there is something about people who do make that decision that I respect, because it's a hard one to make.
Yeah, I brought the article up. It was this fellow Chad that wrote it, and we'll post a link on our page.
And we should get in touch with him. We'll send him this interview, and we'll talk to Chad and see. Be curious.
It was an email from. He said he got an email from Eric. You don't mind me reading this?
No, please, please.
This is supposedly Eric. He says, a friend of mine told me about your site some time ago. He told me his brother was trying to put some pictures of me up on your site, and no one believed him. When I look at some of my clips from the movie, I don't recognize myself. I am not ashamed of the movie, truth be told. I was trained with the mindset of less is more. I was a good actor before the project and all the work that followed. I do not regret paying attention to my instincts, and instead, I do regret not paying attention to my instincts and instead listening to Lee saying, give me more, quote unquote, and all the urgings from Joe Earl to go over the top. I wasn't born in North Carolina, and Wikipedia has it all ass backwards. What can you do? All this bullshit talk over the years. Where is he? Did he die of embarrassment? They should pull his SAG card. Fuck you. It's actually simple. Life happened when I was making plans. It is so strange to see the movie still has a following. Little kids to this day run up to me and ask if I ever did a horror film. My friend and I were laughing at the thought of Ricky having a comeback. He's been in an insane asylum for the last 20 years. If you'd like to write me, feel free. Take care, Eric. And then he wrote back something that if he published this email, he would never talk to him again, or something along those lines. So he said he just called him, and that someone picked up. Could it be him? I introduced myself. We started talking about the blog entries. He just, he said, according to Eric, he just became burnt out, plain and simple. He felt he was going as far as he could in the entertainment business and just didn't care to pursue future projects. Apparently bad experiences in projects, including a sitcom on NBC that was halted due to the 80s writer's strike. That's it. Nothing shocking or exciting. Just a guy who didn't care to continue acting.
And he didn't sound interested in like doing the whole circuit of like now.
Oh, the conventions.
Being a convention. Because he would be huge. I mean, a lot of people would be excited. And I actually think the fact that he says that probably means he hasn't been to one. I think if he went, if friends of his could convince him to go to one just to see, he would probably fall in love with it because he's exactly the kind of guy who will be shocked at what people really think about him. They're not laughing at him. They're really like loving it and laughing with it. And I think he'd probably get energized from that. But it's hard to convince someone of that, when you think you're the butt of a joke,
Right. And then there's a quote from you, Lee, kind of addressing some of the stuff he said, just saying that he's right about the production being screwed from the start. Chalk that up to low-budget filmmaking, and I don't disagree about my direction of him or any of the actors. I was more concerned with camera placement and having something to cut together later. We made rookie mistakes. Pretty much it?
I'd say so. Okay. I mean, that in no time, and...
But then also you think back, like the weird thing about film, because it lasts for so long, is that had he reined himself in and had you guys made these other choices, would anyone even think about the movie? Like there's certain elements of that make a movie memorable, and that's one of them, and it's at least a beacon to make you watch the movie. Mm-hmm. Like the YouTube clips are enough for people now to seek it out and then maybe enjoy the whole movie. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird thing. You can look back all you want, but you change things and you break things,
It's timing and all that kind of. I mean, it all worked out the way it was supposed to, and the movie is what it is because of the timing of it all.
I think so. I mean, I think it's amazing that we're talking about it now. I mean, for a movie made so long ago that was a sequel to a notorious movie, and I would think we'd be talking about the first one as opposed to this crazy thing.
Yeah, but as I say, I celebrate this one. This is the one.
Did people, and obviously with Eric, who knows if people will see, I mean, I even that might not even be true. Did the writer's strike part sound real to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's saying from memory. I'm sure it probably isn't, but I felt like, unless I see a photo, I need to see a photo of what the guy looks like now for me to go, okay, yeah, obviously that's the real guy.
Well, he left me a phone message about a year ago at my office. I came in, it was on a Sunday he left it, I came in on Monday, and there was this message, and it was him. It was absolutely him, and he was, "Hey Lee, it's Eric Freeman," and he laughed. That laugh.
That's awesome.
And immediately said, "Yeah, I know." So he knew what was going on with everything. Wow.
That's really funny.
That's crazy.
So, and he didn't leave a number. He said, "I'll get back to you." And that's the last I've heard from him. I'd love to see him. He also mentioned in that article that he never got a copy of the movie. And I'd be happy to give him a copy of the movie.
Because he can't find them. Yeah, I mean, that it doesn't
Lee
seem
told me that he
all.
Bought this shirt from Fright Rags. And I'm like, and did they know it was you? And he's like, oh, no, I just,
That's awesome, yeah. Well, you got to send one to Eric if you can get a hold of him.
Figure that out.
But I mean, it is nice to be honest, I hear a story like that, and the thing I like hearing is that he's not dead. I mean, and I mean that really. Like, if that would have been a pretty bummer conclusion to this all, I guess that guy became an alcoholic and died in Mississippi. It's nice to know that he made that choice. Right. Whatever, and we'll see how it plays out. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But I hope that he gives it a shot and comes out and like sees that people actually genuinely probably would really love to talk to him about it. I think it would be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, why else would you wear a T-shirt with the guy saying Garbage Day? and in a moment like that, I'm curious, like with Garbage Day or some of the moments that have been clipped, if you want to say it, did you know on set that those moments particularly are really fun, like funny, and did they make you guys laugh? Like, that's a great moment.
They made us laugh in the script.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, again, it was just, and my apologies to Stephen King, but pick a Stephen King bad guy, on the verge of madness and would yell out crazy stuff like that, especially in The Stand has a lot of that. So for us, that was yes, bigger. Yeah. But again, we were more impressed with the fact that we had a Steadicam to shoot that with, and just go for it, Eric, go for it. And we're losing the light, and we have to go now.
Did you cut the trailer? I haven't seen the trailer to Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, but did you cut the trailer? Okay.
No, I did not.
I don't know if the trailer's on here. Is there?
I think there is.
Yeah. All right.
Did you have any say in it?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
That's kind of funny.
And my third question, is it a good trailer? Or did it play for a while, like get people interested? Or?
Yeah, it's a pretty meatball trailer. It's Christmas Eve, and it's
Did
just
they focus more on the original or your film for the sequel?
They had a little bit of everything in there.
So it was all right.
Wow. All right. Do we want to run off some holiday horror stuff? Do you watch any holiday horror stuff at all? Well, actually, it doesn't even have to be horror because I've been in
Christmas movies. We're getting in our Christmas mood.
I watched Die Hard 1 and 2. That's an annual an annual Christmas thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Lethal Weapon on queue.
Mm-hmm.
I always argue that Psycho, believe it or not, the original Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, it's a Christmas movie. Opening title card says it takes place December 11th.
Interesting.
So it starts in December. And there's actually decorations up in the streets when Janet Leigh is driving out of town.
Huh.
Bet you didn't know that.
I didn't notice that in the Gus Van Sant remake.
No, well.
Who's seen the original? Who watches that? Okay, that's it. Well, I mean, we're Gremlins. We're going to be showing on 16 mil at Jump Cut.
That's right.
16 millimeter print, a pristine print, Saturday 21st. So that's a great Christmas movie. We just did a list of unlikely Christmas movies, like films that take place on Christmas that you wouldn't even realize. We did like Brazil, Eyes Wide Shut, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, films that are all literally taking place at Christmas, but they're not about Christmas. Gremlins really is, and I put that at the top of the list just because I love it. But and Gremlins and Die Hard, I do think, are about Christmas in their own way.
Anything written by Shane Black.
Yeah, Shane Black will throw. Yeah, but it is such a. I guess it's just there's more at stake. I guess when the backdrop is cheer and holidays, and sometimes it's desperation.
Are there a lot of I talk to AJ about this all the time because he loves Christmas horror in particular. Are there a lot of Christmas horror movies? At least good ones?
Well, no, not good ones. But I sent you a list that I wrote like 2 years ago for a site called Movie. I'll post it. I found, I think, about 45 to 50 titles of horror films set on Christmas, and a lot of them like Silent Night, Gory Night, Silent Night, and I haven't seen half of them. And and to be honest, I'm not a big fan of a lot of them. Like I think Black Christmas is like basically perfect.
Yeah, the original.
But again, it's not really, it doesn't feel like it's about Christmas. It's just set at Christmas, which I think is one of the big differences. Like when your film's about Santa or a killer elf, it's obviously going to be a little more, or hopefully tongue-in-cheek. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it might not be as effective. I think as a backdrop, it works a lot better. My favorite Christmas movie is Christmas Evil. I'm not saying that it's a better film than Black Christmas, because it's not, but I think it's my favorite of those ones. That have you ever seen that? Better Watch Out. But
I've never seen it either, but that's playing at the New Bev Tuesday.
It will be,
with the double
with
the original Black Christmas.
Yeah, about a few years ago, on the first show I ever did, when I was starting to put these video shows of horror together, I had an idea for a show called This Week in Horror. It'd be like a weekly show where we'd have a guest and it'd all be on video. And I said it was Christmas, and I said, well, we're going to do Christmas. I said, I will only go through with creating this show if we can find the director of Christmas Evil. And I had no idea if he was alive or not. It's from like 1980. And a friend of mine wrote to a friend I know in New Zealand, wrote to someone, made one call, and I had Lewis Jackson.
Wow.
Yeah, so this friend I know in New Zealand who we've talked about before, he did ABCs of Death. He's connected to everyone because of they trade film prints around the globe. Mm-hmm. And he knows the guy who runs Grindhouse Film Festival, which we're going to.
Right.
And that guy's personal friends with the director, Lewis Jackson, who's only made one film, one feature film, which is Christmas Evil. But we got him on the show, and his stories are amazing. Like John Waters more or less saved his life by finding the film. It basically was taken away by the mafia, the mob, he told stories about middle of the film he's shooting, and they tell him he has to go to New Jersey with like literally a brown paper bag full of cash and hand it to someone in the middle of the night. It was that kind of thing. But like you watch the film, it's really artfully made, but there's a really, if anyone's into art house cinema, there's the best part of the film is he's like very naive, and I think that leads to great results. But he had done all these storyboards, like really beautiful. He's obviously a talented artist, and he had a huge book of them. And he went to the cinema and he saw last year at Marienbad, which is like about as far to the art house as you can go. And he goes, I really like this. So he got on a plane and went to the cinematographer's house and said, can you shoot my slasher film? And the guy did. And that's why it looks so damn good, because he's got one of the best cinematographers in the world from France, who has only done art house and some of the best films ever made. Comes back to New York and goes, sure. So I loved your illustration so much. That's why it looks very, if you watch the first 20 minutes, it's very Citizen Kane, and it's very purposeful. There's even a snow globe kind of moment at the start with Santa. But, it's not saying it ever elevates that, but it is really interesting. And it's a character study, and most of these aren't. Like, Silent Night, Deadly Night, the first ones, it's just, there's some, sure, he goes on a downward spiral, but it's all total exploitation, right?
Yeah.
This one's really about a guy, kind of a tragic figure who works at a toy factory and gets thrust into the role of being the local Santa, and he's not all right, and a lot of factors work against him. But it's also got a slightly magical realism tone. It's not really horror. It's a horror. People consider a horror film to sell it, but I would say it probably would have done better over the years if it had not been placed as a straight horror film. But it's good, and it's the dad of Fiona Apple. It's Fiona Apple, the musician, her dad, who plays the lead. Brandon Maggart is his name, and it's a great performance. So I have a real appreciation for that film because I think it's really boxing above its weight in terms of how it was all put together. So if anyone sees it and is interested, I can lead you to like the YouTube clips of Lewis talking about it at depth. They're really fun. Wow. And he's an interesting guy. I hope he'll be at that screening.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. I've never seen it. I can't wait to see it that way.
Yeah, that's the way to go because you're really getting. I can't remember the cinematographer's name off the top of my head, but to go out of your way and do that, you have to have that certain naivety about how things get done. In Hollywood, that gets kind of beaten out of you because everyone's like, well, no, you have to sign a deal memo and this person has to be available and this is your window. And, and there's a time where you could go, that was a cool movie. I'm just going to go ask that guy. So that Christmas Evil is definitely one that I really dig. And most people I talk to about it don't seem to like it. I don't know why. Becca always slams it.
Really?
She never liked it. And I don't think Ryan liked it. So, we'll see.
Well, neither of them are here to
defend themselves.
Yeah, so screw them.
But
what did Becca say?
She liked something called Elves.
Elves. I'm not familiar with that.
Never heard of it.
I think it was only on video. I don't know I doubt that ever came out on DVD or anything. She loves Rare Exports, which is the new one, which really nice a lot of people kind of credit. And she said Scrooged, which I agree with.
Scrooged is probably one of my favorites. I watch
Scrooged every year on Christmas Eve. And you know what? It's kind of got horror-ish elements to it. It's got that great Danny Elfman score and all of Tim Burton's movies that he's done, like Batman Returns and Edward Scissorhands, have that Christmas vibe to it as well.
I love Scrooge. I love the film, the shows he's making at the start. Yeah. I think one is called Carjacked, and it's just great. It's so good.
Oh my god, yeah, and that stuff's great. She said Mixed Nuts as well.
Oh yeah, Steve Martin.
Is that Steve Martin? Yeah, Steve Martin. Christmas one. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if I've seen it.
And then the only ones I mention here. Let's see, Psycho. I have an old Fango film. I don't remember it being good, but I don't remember it being bad either. Great title. It's called One Hell of a Christmas. I'm going to pull it off my DVD shelf and revisit it this year because I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but that's one that I remember coming out thinking was all right.
I remember Don't Open Till Christmas is like a real kind of exploitation British. I think it was a British one from memory.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was kind of gnarly. I think that's the other thing that maybe because of Silent Night, Deadly Night, a lot of them are quite vicious and seem quite unredeeming. There's no like much comedy there. Then there are people like Charles Band, or where you have is it Frosty? They have the series of the Jack Frost horror films with the giant snowman getting, and they have what's the other one? Ginger Dead Man series.
Yeah,
and those they're tongue-in-cheek. They're not my kind of films, but at least people having a laugh about Christmas. I kind of respect that more.
They're not very serious.
Yeah. But then there was the remake of Silent Night last year?
Yeah, that guy Stephen Miller did the remake of Silent Night. It's okay.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you why it's not okay, because there's no snow. I just don't see the point
that one part
in making a film in like LA sunlight set at Christmas. It just seems like a waste of time using a title like that, like Silent Night, where you really could have gone all out and just picked a state that had snow.
Yeah,
I mean, that same story taking place in a different city probably would have been a completely different experience.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And so for me, that was just enough to go. You shouldn't have bothered.
There's only one scene in that remake that is distracting because they're out in the open and there's just no snow anywhere.
Yeah, there's a parade. There's a Christmas parade in the middle of sunlight, and you're watching. All
right, 2 scenes.
Okay.
And the Black Christmas remake, which I know a lot of people hated when it came out, and I didn't go because I hold the original in such high regard.
Right.
That I didn't want to bother seeing it. But I finally revisited it maybe in the last year or two, and it's kind of crazy. It's not good.
But there's a couple of people we know that have been really championing it.
I should say it again. It's not a good remake of Black Christmas, but it's like a really excited 12-year-old saw Black Christmas and like made up their own sequel in their head, and that's what that movie is. Those dudes that made that, which I think was the Final Destination guys.
Okay.
They just seemed like they were such huge fans of the original and decided, what if Billy was like yellow and like ate flesh cookies and like all this like ridiculous batshit crazy stuff. So it's not good, but it's fun to watch now as just an alternate thing. There are two different things that happen. One's called Black Christmas, The remake's called Black Xmas.
Xmas, yeah.
Big difference. Big difference.
There's only one Christmas film that I think needs to get made, and I think we're sitting with the director who could help us get this made. I believe the only story that still needs to be told is Grandpa's story from part 1.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell happened to that guy when he was a kid on Christmas?
Baby.
Because he's in a apparently catatonic state. Clearly something happened to really freak him out about Christmas. I don't think he was just picking on his grandson. It felt like he had scarring about Christmas. I would love to see the prequel.
The only thing that's healed me about the grandpa in the original Silent Night is that it's the same guy in Back to the Future whose barn Marty crashes into, and he runs over his pine.
Right.
My pines.
Oh, that's right.
That's Grandpa from Silent Night Deadland. Yeah.
You better run, boy. You better run for your life. Santa's coming. I did want. I'm curious. Had you seen Black Christmas before?
No.
Okay, that's one you might genuinely think is a good film.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's not.
Bob. I mean, it's Bob Clark, the director.
Porky's and
Porky's Christmas Story.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that he dabbled in every single genre and kind of made a definitive movie.
But I think you nailed it. I think one of the most important, like back to back, thinking of Black Christmas and Christmas Story is just polar opposite movies. Both two of the best of their subgenre. I mean, that's a pretty miraculous feat, I'd say.
Yeah,
pulling off those two films. But yeah, holidays are a weird thing. Any holiday movies, how they date in one sense, and you can only really watch them at that time. Like you're not going to watch a Thanksgiving movie any other time except Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's true.
And there aren't a lot of good ones. There aren't a lot of good ones.
Well, I had mentioned to you before, Lee, that the New Bev had screened Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 last year. You did not attend, but you said some friends went?
Friends went, and they said, the place was packed, and the reaction was great. And see, for me, I'm still gun shy, because I figured people would be laughing at it because that was the rap on the movie. It still is the rap on the movie. And I guess, too insecure to stand in that room and hear everybody laugh. And I can't explain, you only had 10 minutes to do that. And,
right.
Well, you can during the Q&A. But you might also find that you get laughs the problem with never getting to see your film with a good audience is you'll never know which ones really did work. Because some of the timing you're probably nailing.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to find you're getting certain reactions right when you actually hoped. But you never really got a good audience.
Well, here's the thing. The people that go to the New Beverly those are real diehard cinema fans. They're there because they love movies. That's the reason they come out on a midnight or whatever it is. So I can guarantee you when I was stoked to see it on the big screen either way. Packed house. I think they asked before, they're like, how many of you have seen it? And more than half the audience had not seen the movie. So to get a genuine it played like gangbusters. It just, everyone was having a good time. Lots of laughs, lots of fun watching the movie. And rumor has it, this is just a rumor now, but the rumor has it is they might show it again this December.
Yeah, I heard that it might be doing a midnight screening.
That's the rumor.
I'd go to that.
If it does,
we'll go with you, and
we'll come with us.
We'll ask you questions up so you're comfortable. We'll set it up for you.
I think you'll get a lot of love if you showed up to a screening of it.
Well, that's a deal.
Yeah.
As long as it's not a double feature with the first one. Then you want to blow your brains out.
It's redundant, yeah.
But this has been a blast. I think there's no words for it. This is really cool for us.
Thank you so much for coming in on such short notice and chatting with us about this movie. And I'm glad you liked the commentary that we did.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to it now.
Thank you.
Well, now that I've revisited, I needed to see it again recently.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're up to at the moment that you want to talk about?
Not really cutting trailers anymore. I want to get back into filmmaking. Oh, cool. Trailers was kind of a left turn for me. And now I've been doing that for 25 years. I want to try to get back to filmmaking. I'm going to shoot a short in January and try some festival stuff and see what happens.
What kind of genre?
It's a Twilight Zone-ish kind of thing.
My favorite.
Wrote this thing years ago called Boo, which was an anthology. And this is one of the pieces from the anthology. Oh, cool. I just pulled it out of the drawer a couple months ago. And, hey, I think this could work. Huh. Mm-hmm. And it's subtle.
Oh, good.
Which will be different for me.
Now, is the plan, all right, this is the first step. Let's start with the short. And then maybe you show that and be like, hey, this is part of an anthology thing. There's a couple of more of these we could probably do.
That would be nice. I mean, years ago when I first came out here, that's all anybody said. You have a student film and they say, well, that's great. What else you got? I just got out of school. What do you mean? Yeah. And now, at least, all these years later, if they say, what else do you have?
Yeah.
I'll be able to pull out a script.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
That's cool.
I'm excited about it.
See, that gives me. I love hearing people when you don't give up on it like that. Yeah, I tweeted saying a couple of days ago. I said Manuel de Oliveira. I can't even say his name. The French director is 105 years old, and he still hasn't retired from filmmaking. So I've got 70 years left to still get there. Because no, I mean it's incredible. I saw his last film when he was 103. I saw it, and it was about the erotic life of a hot 23-year-old blonde girl that a guy had a crush on. And you're watching it going, how cool is it that a 100-year-old man still feels the same way about a beautiful 23-year-old blonde girl? That to me just makes life feel all worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, that it's never too late to pivot with filmmaking. It's about storytelling. There's no, that ageist shit is all bullshit. That's just politics, you know? I do think it might make it harder for sure, but it doesn't mean one person gets to tell a story over another, you know?
No, I want to use what I think I've learned, watching great movies over the years and doing trailers for them. And I mean, you're working with the best cinematographers and best actors and directors,
cool.
and making your own little movies. So
yeah, that's cool. I hope that works out too.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Lee, again for coming in. Really appreciate it. We've got, we'll be back next Wednesday. We got a special guest. We're doing the crossover episode with the Bloodcast. I think that'll be during the Christmas break.
Yeah, we'll be shooting it this weekend, but you won't hear for a little while because we're going to hold that one back.
So you got a couple more left for the rest of the year. And again, thanks to everybody for listening. We love your feedback. The feedback that I got for the sex and horror episode was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Pretty out of control. I'm still getting tweets every couple days. Shelley Duvall? Question mark.
Oh yeah.
Yes, no shame from The Shining. That's it. Please keep it up. Reach out to us on our Facebook page. Leave comments on the Geek Nation page. Go to iTunes, find Killer POV on iTunes, and give us a review on there. We really appreciate what you guys have said on there so far. So
we're gonna go out with laughs. Our best Eric.
No, I can't.
No, you can't.
How can we compete with that laugh?
That's pretty hard to do. All right.
Garbage day.
Yes. I think that's pretty good.
That's where we go.
Eat shit, dog.
I just love that one.
All righty. Thanks so much. And and check out the commentary, the free one that I did on Icons of Fright. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for coming.